Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today's Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025, and Trump wants to abolish the income tax in the United States, making an excellent case for the 51st state. I think if we have the option of joining the United States and not having an income tax because the tariffs that they're using are paying so much money that they're a very rich nation and they don't need the income tax anymore, well, that would be great, and it would solve lots and lots of problems in Canada. Problems that I believe less and less that we can solve, and only because we lack the willpower, only because our society is so demoralized. And I wish it weren't so, but I hope the only way to save Canada is not by handing it over to the United States. However, at this point in time, it seems like people are collectively looking at the wholesale destruction of whatever makes Canada a Western free country and collectively shrugging. And it's such a weird thing. So Trump's abolishing the income tax. So that sounds good. Trump calls out Somalia. He says, we don't need those people in our country. They can get the hell back to their country. And well, he says it much more eloquently than I do. The Fabian Society is controlling the United Kingdom, and they want to remove the trial by jury because that gives them an easy way to just throw whoever they want in jail for whatever reason they want. And there's very little oversight if you remove jury trial. And so, hey, why did they keep the jury trial thing around for as long as they did, right? If this streamlines things so much. I think all of these institutions have been destroyed on purpose for the express purpose of removing them off the board so that they can have full control. And I wish it weren't so, but it seems like that's what we're watching. Canada joins the EU, costs be damned. So in order for the United Kingdom, which is much closer to the EU, to join the EU, it was going to cost them almost $7 billion with a B. And yesterday I showed you tape of this, or tape, they don't do that anymore. I showed you a recording of this, and the person being questioned about how much the entry fee for Canada is wouldn't answer the question. And also, Canada is in no position to defend the EU because, an ocean, and the EU is in no position to defend Canada. It can't even defend itself. Have you noticed the borders are open in the EU? And there's lots of big news. There's a huge amount of news in Canada these days. Every day I'm barely keeping up. And the show's an hour, right? And it's supposed to be fun, but I hope you have fun. But there's so much news that it could easily be much more than an hour long, but I have other things to do. So, gosh. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. C9 passes committee, and it's worse than you think. And we're starting with C9. So here is this lady to kind of outline it. And she outlines what C9 does, but C9 has four main components. It prevents people from protesting and blocking access to schools or churches. It adds hate crime laws around posting symbology or images of hate, and it removes the religious freedoms and protections around religious text. And it has passed the committee part. It's passed, and so I think it's going to be law because of the Bloc Québécois. And so that's weird. The Bloc says we can't pass these people's budget. The budget passes, and then they pass this attack on free speech. Unbelievable. I think the government is illegitimate. I think the government runs rigged elections and makes sure that they maintain power so they can continue the rigged theft of our tax dollars. And I don't know why Canadians tolerate this. We watched another country have an election on Discord after removing their globalist leaders. Did they get another group of globalist leaders? I don't know. But it seems like sitting back and just allowing this to happen is a bad idea, right? And so we'll see what Canadians do, how Canadians respond.
SOS.
Will we protest? If we protest, will we be heard? The fact is, no, we were heard. The last time Canadians were really heard during a protest was the Freedom Convoy, and the only reason we were heard is because the truckers wouldn't leave, and they illegally declared the Emergencies Act on them. And do you know who got in trouble for illegally declaring the Emergencies Act on the truckers? Nobody, absolutely nobody. Tamara Litch and Chris Barber did. That's it, right? And BJ Dichter, who's that guy, right? Which is exactly by design. So here's C9. They want to be able to arrest people and disappear people without really creating a ripple, so that you don't talk about what they've done, because what they've done or what they will be doing with this stuff, and not just C9, but there's a package of bills that work all together to make things difficult for people to talk about. So if I was arrested, for example, I got a message from Facebook yesterday saying that my video violated their community terms because I was inciting violence. And I was like, but it didn't say which part was inciting violence. And so they're going to arrest people and say, you engaged in hate speech online. And when you find out about it, you're going to say, well, that could be me. Like, what do you mean hate speech online? And you don't have an audience, whereas the person targeted does. And that's why they're targeting that person, you see? And it's to chill speech. So we're in some deep shit, Canada. Deep shit.
This morning in Ottawa, the Liberals announced a deal with the Bloc that would remove religious belief exemption from Canada's hate speech laws.
It removes the Attorney General's consent so that police can charge you directly with no higher level filter. And it opens the door, frankly, and my concern is that it opens the door for politically motivated arrests.
If you have not already heard about this, that is the point. They are making changes that would allow the government to treat sincere religious belief as potential hate speech. Here's what that means in real terms. The bar for what counts as hatred is lowered. The Attorney General oversight is removed. Police can charge you directly. And the few protections that existed for people of faith are being stripped out.
We've been talking about how the government has refused to do anything or even acknowledged that church burnings are a problem, right? This article is just from last month. The article is 3 charges of burning near century-old church in central Alberta. Where is the inquiry on this? Why aren't existing laws being used to prevent this from happening?
Think about that. A government defining what beliefs are acceptable and what beliefs are criminal. A government deciding when your prayer, your doctrine, your conviction crosses an invisible line. Existing laws already cover hate crimes. They already cover incitement, but those laws are not being enforced. Instead of enforcing what exists, they want to rewrite the laws so that they can go after thought, belief, doctrine, and dissent. This is not about protection. This is about controlling ideas. This is about politicians deciding what Canadians are allowed to believe. And once they set that precedent, there is no limit for what comes next. Religious freedom is foundational in Canada. It is not optional. It is not something any government should be eroding. And yet that is exactly what this amendment does. If this passes, every Canadian of every faith should be alarmed. Because once belief can be criminalized, everything else can be too. Stay aware, share this, ask why a G7 government is trying to police religious thought, and ask why are they doing it quietly?
Because they're globalist communists who don't work for us. That's why. It's all rigged. The whole system is rigged. The stock market is rigged. The money is rigged. They have unlimited money. They have control of the justice system. They have control of the police, the RCMP. They have control of pretty much every level of government. They have full control. They just don't have control of people like me. And if everybody, yesterday Hoshi commented on the Canada Poly website, and he was basically saying, if a critical mass of people believe that the system we're in is rigged, the way I believe that the system that we're in is rigged, then people will not play anymore because they'll realize that playing just reinforces the system, right? And so they'll stop. And that stopping will disrupt the government. And stopping is not, it's not a lack of action. It is, we're not going to do this anymore. And it would remove the corrupt parts, right? And they're worried that if enough people say this is a rigged system, that they lose control. And so they're willing to bet that the Bloc Québécois will support C9, and they piece by piece, they can get their legislation, their censorship legislation passed, and then they'll use it to prevent people like me from suggesting to people like you that this whole thing is rigged. But I'm telling you, it's rigged, and it's been rigged for the last 10 years. It's been rigged for the last 40 years. It's been rigged longer than I've been alive. And there are people who have been talking about this. The Fed was created for this situation. Birth control was created as a genocidal weapon against one population. And so, the West. And so I wish that people would see it. But here we are, and the censorship laws are coming, and people are collectively shrugging and not doing anything. And so I don't think we can vote our way out of this. I don't know if we can protest our way out of this, but it seems dire because all of the politicians in the Uniparty are working together to push this through. And it's not about religious people. Everything I've read says, oh, religious people this, religious people that. It's not about religious people. It is about everyone. If they can criminalize belief, they can criminalize everything. Mark Nixon says conservatives are getting this one wrong. Canadians don't want an amendment to Bill C-9. We want it incinerated. The Liberals' bill tramples freedom of religion. Christian, Muslim, and faith leaders are already sounding the alarm. The Liberals don't care. And yeah, they're corrupt globalists. I'm sorry, they just are. Andrew Lawton says Liberals wage unnecessary war on religious freedom with Bill C-9. It's not just religious freedom, it's all freedom. Religious freedom is just the underpinning of why you can say pretty much anything, because if you sincerely believe it, then it can be your personal doctrine and so on and so forth. And well, it has to be okay. And because freedom of speech, even though we have things in the criminal code that cover indictment, that cover calls to violence, that cover incitement to violence, that cover all of these things, they're not even being enforced. And they're not being enforced so that people think there's a problem, so that these liberals can change the laws so they can target people like me. The federal Liberals insist their new bill is needed to protect religious Canadians from hate. In reality, it does the opposite. It will expose people of faith to criminal prosecution for the simple act of quoting their own sacred text. And it will expose other people to scrutiny of their online posts, and they will say, this is hateful, and now we're going to charge you with a hate motivated posting online. I'm sure it's coming. The Liberals and Bloc have made a deal to eliminate long-standing criminal code safeguards for freedom of expression and religious freedom in exchange for the Bloc supporting C-9, which is currently before the House of Commons Justice Committee. Canada's hate speech laws currently say people cannot be prosecuted for expressing in good faith an argument or opinion on a religious subject or based on a belief in a religious text. This isn't some obscure legal technicality. The Supreme Court has recognized this defense is necessary to keep Canada's hate speech laws constitutional. Understanding how crucial freedom of expression and freedom of religion are, if this amendment is adopted and Bill C-9 is passed, the people of faith could be imprisoned for up to 2 years for expressing deeply held religious convictions that the government finds offensive. Religious communities, including Jews, Christians, Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus, and Buddhists, hold a vast range of beliefs. They and others sometimes disagree vigorously on questions of morality, sexuality, politics, and culture. Some Canadians may find these beliefs objectionable, old-fashioned, or even hateful, but a free country does not criminalize the expression of sincerely held religious doctrines. We debate people we disagree with. We do not silence them. We certainly don't arrest them. In Canada, we do silence them. I've been silenced massively over these past 5 years, and further, even more than that. And the arrests, I would be shocked if arrests aren't coming. Absolutely shocked. So I hope I'm wrong about that, but it is a very concerning situation we find ourselves in. And the crime area today, we're going to be talking about the arrest of Francis Widdowson, who pro-Palestinian protesters take over campuses in a violent way and intimidate lots and lots of people. Francis Widdowson and her group, 1BC, or 1BC and Francis Widdowson together, having quiet conversations on UBC campus, University of Victoria campus, got her arrested. And yet the organizers of the pro-Palestinian protests, the people on the ground, the people who are violent, the people who are using amplified noise machines and things like that, they're all fine. No problems for them. But Francis Widdowson and truth about the First Nations residential schools and what happened there, that's intolerable. They will not allow that to happen. And this is why I think it's rigged. This is why if you start being effective at communicating the message of this is incorrect, this is factually wrong, and people start listening to you, they have to cut you off at the knees. They have to shut you down. Because if your story starts becoming adopted as the story, then they lose their power. And with this residential school thing, they're losing their power, and they've lost control of Dallas Brody. And so Dallas Brody is a tour de force, and they're going to start trying to shut her down. And these arrests are the first salvo of that. Now, she's a lawyer, so she's got some built-in protections. All the more reason to become a lawyer. But right, I don't think that's necessarily going to protect you in a cracked, crooked, compromised system. 1BC says, today we're coming to you, Victoria. Nothing will stop us from telling the truth. And the University of Victoria says an event planned for Tuesday on campus featuring 1BC leader Dallas Brody is not permitted to take place. And she says, or 1BC says, we're coming anyway. And they do. And so this is the president of the University of Victoria. She's becoming unhinged on a megaphone, I guess. Jim McMurtry says, U of Vic president appeared briefly. 1BC is answering the question that she's asking here. What are we doing here? Left-wing universities are turning our youth into shrieking lunatics. In civilizations like Canada, we debate with our words. So grow up, you lunatics. But here's this lady. I think maybe she might be having a seizure, but I could be wrong about that. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's what's going on. And the problem here, obviously, is Frances Widdowson, and she's being arrested by police at the direction of the University of Victoria. Peter says, this is a disgrace. Canada is completely lost. Yep.
So you're going to arrest me and you're going to take me into the downtown? Off the property. Off the property?
And then we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, but I have to obey your orders as a member of the police department?
Yeah, you're arrested.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir. How many months did the Palestinian protests stay here on the UVic campus?
Okay.
And will you come with us?
Was it 2 months?
I have to. So
Was it
you're
3
ordering
months?
you're ordering me to go with you. Okay.
Shameful. Shameful. And this is exactly what you think it is. And she's being tossed into a thought gulag. And she's not allowed. Oh, that would have been a good name for today's show. But she's not allowed to express the truth. And the truth of the matter is what she's saying. That's factually true, right? That there have been no bodies found and these claims are unproven, unverified, just claims. And our government has wasted lots of money, $12 million to excavate. No excavation has taken place. And so they're arresting her for making these factually true claims. Canada is in deep shit. Deep shit. Excuse me again, but holy cow. Cosman says they actually jailed Frances Widdowson. The dead wrong author and academic is in the in a police jail cell right now because UVic President Robina Thomas couldn't handle hearing facts about the Kamloops residential school claims, right? And so you got to be careful about how explicit you are about these factual claims because they may just come and arrest you anyway. Rob Schneider says the mass hypnosis in Canada is symptomatic of a society that has been lied to and manipulated by its leaders for the last decade. Yes. Billboard Chris says in 21, we were told that mass graves of murdered Indigenous children had been found in Kamloops, BC at the site of a former residential school. The Washington Post reported that bodies of children as young as 3 years old had been discovered in a mass grave. Soon, other Indigenous communities across Canada were making similar claims that murdered children have been found using ground-penetrating radar. Hysteria gripped Canada. Monuments of sneakers representing murdered kids went up around the country. The Canadian flag at Parliament in Ottawa flew at half-mast for 6 months. Billions of dollars were set aside as reconciliation for non-existent genocide of Indigenous children. A new national holiday was announced, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. You don't create a holiday to celebrate genocide. That's messed up, especially when the holiday is based on information that's not factual, that's ideological at best. And to date, more than 100 Christian churches have been burned in response. All of it was a lie. There's never been a shred of evidence that there are graves. Where excavation has been done in Canada, they found nothing. In other places, the Indigenous leaders refused to dig because they know the money will dry up, and this will be exposed as the biggest fraud in Canadian history. Oh, I think there are bigger. Sorry, there's bigger frauds. COVID, it was bigger fraud. The documentary tells the truth about it all, including how private land is now being given away to Indigenous people by politicians and judges who insist we are on stolen land. Nobody stole Canada. We built Canada together. I agree. I agree with all of that. And so we are in a lot of trouble. Here is 1BC. They say this is the left-wing protester who violently assaulted 1BC volunteer Drew for speaking the truth. The left meets peaceful words with violence. Okay, so footage of left-wing protester at the University of Victoria violently assaulting 1BC volunteer. So the person who gets arrested is Frances Widdowson, not the person who's physically assaulting anybody. Isn't that odd? Don't you think that's strange? It should strike you as strange, please. James says this isn't justice. 1BC says the news showed up. So the news came to reframe what's going on, right? It's a narrative control, says James. And until we have a government that truly represents the people, BC will keep slipping into what I see as a deeper moral decline. The government knows they can win an election, but they can't win the public conversation. So they limit the public conversation and force it into polls, force it into things they control. And that's why they're trying to get rid of me. You see? Or people like me, not just me, right? I'm not that narcissistic. Although, like there's a handful of us. There's like 5 or 6 people I can count on one hand, really genuinely, the people who are actually really full-throatedly pointing out what is going on. Most of the other people, most of the really big people that people watch, the Jasmines, the Marks, the Ryans, right? Like not all of them, but the plebs, right, are heavily influenced, to put it kindly, right? And they're not talking, they think they're talking about the show. I'm talking about behind the curtain, right? And there's 5 or 6 people across Canada who are talking about what's really going on, not the show of what's going on, what's really going on. Because what's really going on is across the West, it has undermined every Western government. We are paying for our own genocide and pretending that it's women's rights, right? And it's unbelievable that they're getting away with it. And they are. And most people don't see it. And they're trying to make sure that nobody sees it. So it's wild. It's absolutely incredible what's going on. Drea says at the University of Victoria today, the police failed to arrest an Antifa-like individual who assaulted Drew, yet quickly arrested Francis Widdowson, who had been trespassed for trying to discuss truth about false unmarked grave claims, right? So unbelievable. Dallas Brody says, today, one BC's documentary exposing the lies of mass murder at the Kamloops Indian Residential School, Making a Killing, is premiering at the BC Legislature. Public launch is online tomorrow. That was actually yesterday, and I'm 15 minutes in, and it's great so far. It's very, very good, hard hitting. So they did a good job, and they should feel good about that. More censorship. Ben Bankus was banned from a Thunder Bay show because he is controversial and does mocking Asian voice, I guess. I don't know. The Elizabeth Chow Christmas album from last year was amazing. Or Olivia Chow. Did I say Elizabeth? Olivia Chow. Ben Bankus says, in Thunder Bay, my show was canceled the day tickets went on sale due to one comment on an Instagram post. Full story here. And yesterday, I had my video removed from Facebook, from nowhere else. Everywhere else, it seems to be fine. But it says, we removed your video. Why this happened? The video may contain something that could encourage violence and lead to risk of physical harm or direct threat to public safety. And then I read through all the stuff because it says, like, what do you need to know? How to prevent further restrictions? What this means for you? See the rule that you broke. And the rule I broke was encouraging violence and could potentially lead to physical harm or a direct threat to public safety. And I was like, what did I say in the half-hour video that I posted yesterday? How could I possibly have done that? And it was the Irish guys, the Irish Republic guys with the weapons. And I wasn't saying that we should do that necessarily. I was just saying that a society pushed to that point, it's no surprise that this is happening, and don't be surprised when it comes here. I wonder if they'll take this one down. Anyway, I found it interesting that they're trying to censor everybody about everything. And isn't that crazy, right? This is all a concerted effort, a concerted push. And until we stop playing their game and stop them from playing the game, we will be forced to continue to dance to their tune. Those are mixed metaphors. The last tab for the free show today will be this one. Holly Doan says, Conservative candidate tells House Affairs Committee that Chinese Communist Party agents stalked his campaign. Threats prompted an abrupt resignation of Liberal MP and security warning from RCMP. During my campaign, I faced nonstop foreign election interference. So this is in crime because, again, the government is allowing foreign interference. The government is encouraging our own interference in the United States elections. We hate Donald Trump. That Donald Trump guy's bad. Oh, why? Don't let Donald Trump use tariffs, right? Like, we can do that to the United States, but if Russia does something to Canada that's bad, super weird, right? And so I think it's really, really weird, notable that we're having a situation where badgering people, intimidating people for political gain from China, that's okay. But if you go and say the residential school hoax is a residential school hoax, you're the problem, right? And so we're in some deep shit, Canada. And that's enough out of me for the stream. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you want the whole show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. If not, that's okay. I'll be around tomorrow. And for everybody else, we will carry on as soon as I end the stream. And that's done. done. Is it actually going to end? Okay, it ended. Past couple of days, it just keeps going for no reason. 25. Yeah, okay. So, sorry, I have 2 timers, and if 2 timers are going, then I have a problem. Everything's good. Melissa says, let's move on to EU news because Canada's joining the EU. Costs be damned, as I said. Melissa says, another corruption case. EU Frederica M. Many photos and meetings with Canada, including with Freeland and Trudeau. Where's the missing money, right? So a former EU top diplomat among 3 held in fraud investigation. Belgian police raid EU Foreign Service headquarters and College of Europe and arrest this woman and 2 others. And so she's met with Freeland. She's met with Freeland in 2018, met with Freeland in I don't see a date on that one, multiple times. Over and over again. So how much money have we sent her, and how many kickbacks have our politicians gotten through their deal with her, right? And will we ever find out? No, I don't. They don't want us to, that's for damn sure. Fun Tom is excited about joining SAFE, and Fun Tom, I think, is another sock puppet account or one of those people who's paid to promote the government line. But maybe not. Maybe he's just a useful idiot. He says, this is huge. Prime Minister Carney announced that Canada has successfully concluded negotiations to join SAFE, the EU's Security Action for Europe initiative. Security Action for Europe? We're in North America. Does Carney not understand basic geography? Because he doesn't understand basic biology. So I guess he's the smartest guy in the room who can't find Canada on a map. Anyway, key outcomes from this. Canada becomes the only non-European country with preferential access to EU's expanding defense procurement market. As all 27 EU member states ramp up defense spending, Canadian companies gain major new opportunities to export Canadian-made defense technologies and capabilities. Well, I guess we're not exporting that to the United States unless we're partnered with them. But who wants F-35s anyway? They're so modern and they've got that new car smell that just won't come out, terrible. We like those other ones, those 4th generation fighters, much more comfortable, right? You just get in the seat and you're like, yeah, this feels like home. Right up until you get blown up by the 5th generation fighter that you didn't see. The deal is expected to attract private investment to Canada. Nope. Create high-paying jobs, grow domestic industries, secure new suppliers for the Canadian Armed Forces.